Welcome to the overview on using data to differentiate instruction. Spring Hill Elementary School has begun to implement their Response to Intervention program. But while Principal Johnson sees teachers providing small group instruction for struggling students, she's not sure that all students are being reached, or that teachers are monitoring student progress regularly and using that information to tailor instruction. Differentiated reading instruction based on assessment data is essential for all students, not just those receiving interventions. While response to intervention systems tailor instruction for students in Tiers 2 and 3 to meet targeted instructional needs, it is also important to differentiate within core instruction to ensure that students are mastering core skills. This is accomplished by varying the content focus, the amount of time spent on instruction, and the degree of teacher support and scaffolding provided to students based on their reading proficiency levels. In Tier 1, differentiated instruction is based on students' assessed reading levels and can be provided as part of regular classroom instruction. For example, if some students need help with improving vocabulary and others with comprehension, the classroom teacher might vary instruction during the reading block by asking students to practice vocabulary with a partner during independent work time, and leading a small group comprehension lesson on character traits and motivations for the characters in a story they are reading that week. For many classroom teachers, managing independent and small group work can be challenging, especially when some children have difficulty paying attention, working independently, or interacting with peers. Teachers may need training in small group management and motivational strategies, or may need additional classroom help to effectively differentiate instruction in Tier 1. Progress monitoring assessments provide important data for guiding differentiated instruction. Teachers use this data to inform their instruction based on students' changing needs and skill development. Progress monitoring assessments help to determine which reading skills students have mastered, which skills may need to be reviewed and retaught, and help identify what the instructional focus needs to be for individuals or small groups of students who need extra help. Progress monitoring should measure the most important reading skills at each grade level. In kindergarten, assessment should focus on phonemic awareness skills, especially segmentation and substitution or elision. Students in first grade should demonstrate fluency with word recognition, non-word or pseudo-word reading, and oral reading of connected text. In second grade, mastery in the areas of fluent word recognition and oral reading fluency becomes critical. In addition to formal assessments, a skill teacher may decide to embed an informal reading measure into a classroom lesson as a quick and efficient way to collect student data on the spot. For example, listening to how a student reads a text that is slightly too difficult can yield useful information about decoding strategies. Similarly, a student's oral summary of a story that was just read can tell the teacher how well the student is comprehending the sequence of main ideas. Building-level response to intervention teams can play an important role in developing decision rules to provide teachers with guidelines for interpreting data and differentiating instruction. For example, a teacher who is monitoring students' word identification skills could use cut-point information to determine whether or not they are ready for reading more challenging material. In Tier 1, progress monitoring is essential for identifying students in need of more intensive reading intervention than can be provided through regular classroom instruction. In Tier 2, progress monitoring helps to distinguish those students who have mastered important benchmark skills from those who continue to require extra help. In Tier 3, regular monitoring is critical for determining whether students are making adequate progress, are ready to be moved into less intensive intervention groups, or need further evaluation. Progress monitoring in Tier 2 should be conducted weekly if possible, and no less than once a month. Schools will find that many Tier 2 intervention programs, particularly those that are off the shelf, contain weekly mastery tests that are useful for monitoring progress. Since student skill levels change over time and in varying degrees, progress monitoring data can help to regroup students receiving Tier 2 instruction so that they are placed with others who have similar skill development needs. Regrouping should occur approximately every 6 weeks. RTI tiers are not meant to be rigidly defined groupings of students. Rather, any well-designed RTI program should allow for fluid movement across tiers. Progress monitoring allows teachers to determine when students are ready to be assigned to a new tier. And if schools use clear decision rules with their student performance data, students should never find themselves stuck in the system. For example, if students show adequate response to Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions, they can be transitioned back into lower tiers. For students receiving Tier 2 instruction who do not make sufficient progress after a reasonable amount of time, the school-wide team can recommend a Tier 3 intervention plan. If students are still having difficulty after receiving intensive services in Tier 3, schools may decide to increase the intensity of instruction, or that evaluation for appropriate special education services is necessary. RTI implementation is a complex process that can require school staff to take on new roles and develop new skills. Districts and schools should be prepared to provide professional development that is focused on how to efficiently and reliably administer assessments, apply decision rules, interpret data, and use the information for planning instruction.